Hello everyone, welcome to Conversia. Let's make it better. This is your host Chinmay Shete and I'm presenting a lecture number 3 today on getting started with ISO 9001 2015. In today's lecture, what we're trying to see is how is the overall structure of ISO 9001 2015, what are its different sections, what are the annexes it has, and we will kickstart with few of those sections in today's lecture. Okay, but before we start, I have a request for all of you to have a release official copy of ISO 9001 2015 standard. You can get it from ISO website, BSI website, or TechStreet. If you want more information, please visit my introduction lecture on ISO 9001 2015. Also, before we start, I want to thank all of you from bottom of my heart for your continued support on my lectures and presentations on the YouTube channel. And believe it or not, we have more than 500 views within a span of a week. So that's a great achievement, and I want to thank all my viewers and all my subscribers to go and visit all these lectures. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, it's Conversia ISO 9001 2015. There is another channel I started which talks about Conversia Lean. I would recommend all of you to go ahead and visit that channel also. Okay, so now let's get started. So the first topic today is what are the contents of ISO 9001 2015. So for this section, I assume that you all have a official release copy of the standard. And going ahead, I will just call the standard as 015 and call the previous standard as 08 for the sake of convenience. So if you look at the contents, you have forward, introduction, scope, normative references, terms and definitions. Forward introduction, we have a dedicated slide coming next. For section 1 to 3, scope, normative references, and terms and definitions, we will look at them briefly too. Section 4 talks about context of an organization. Section 5 talks about leadership. Section 6 discusses planning. Section 7 talks about support. 8 about operation. Section 9 talks about performance evaluation. Section 10 is improvement. And again, you have Annex A, which talks about clarification of new structure, terminology, and concepts. And again, we have a dedicated slide on that in this lecture too. Annex B talks about the other international standards on QMS and quality management system developed by ISO. That's more of an information kind of thing. And lastly, you have the bibliography, which talks about different terms and concepts if you want to go back to them real quick if you during the audit or during your learning exercise. Okay. So before I start, it's very important for us to look at something called as Appendix A or Annex A, which is at the very end of the standard. And that's nothing but a clarification of the new structure of the standard. It discusses the new terminology being used and the new concepts introduced in the standard as compared to 2008 standard we had. So clarification on new structure and concepts, we will talk about that in the future presentations we will release. But it's very important for us to see what exactly changed as far as the terminology is concerned from 08 to 015. And if you look at table 8.1 in the Appendix A, it really discusses that. So let's start with the products. In 08, we used to call them as a products. That terminology has now been changed to products and services. And that really makes sense because ISO is a very generic standard and it's been used and applied, and many organizations are in compliance and certified to the standard all across globe. And that's not restricted to only manufacturing organizations, but also service organizations. So let's say a chicken shop in Beijing, China can get ISO, a law firm in the middle of the Manhattan, New York can get ISO 9001. So you can see the whole range of the organizations and who can get ISO 9001 certifications. So The committee did a good job on including this term of services in this. If you want more information on this, 8.2 in the same annex, it talks in detail about what exactly changed. The second topic is exclusions. In '08, we used to have certain sections in the standard for which you can take exclusions. In '15, that's no longer required. The new term is not used. And clause 8.5 in this annex talks more into it. So it's really called as a clarification of applicability. For example, if you have just a manufacturing shop and you do not have design and development done, then you can simply say it's not applicable to me. Or most of the organizations, they do not do purchasing. They do not do, let's say, calibration kind of activities. For example, a law firm may not do all most of the sections that we have in ISO. So what standard wants them to do is to declare and come up with a proper justification that what's not applicable to them. But having said that, the standard really wants you to make sure that you do not fail to achieve conformity of your products and services that you promised to your customers. So even if you take, let's say, a whole lot of exclusions in '15, or you say they're not applicable to me, the auditors would really like to see what was the reasoning behind it, and they will try to evaluate if you're not failing to achieve conformity to your products and services by doing so. So it's very important for you to think in a broader sense before you take those exceptions or before you say that's not applicable to me. So 8.5 talks about applicability. If you have more questions on this, please send me an email. I do have a more detailed explanation on this, and my email is conversiaend@gmail.com, and it can be found in the in the description section of this video too. Okay, so going back to the table 8.1 again, '08 had a requirement of something called as a management representative. That requirement is no longer there. Your quality assurance manager, quality engineer, anyone can become a management representative, and they have given you that flexibility. '08 had terms like documentation, quality manual, documented procedures, records. For all of these, there is a unique term coined in '15 called as documented information. So quality manual is no longer needed. Documented procedures, '08 wanted a certain set of procedures. 6 procedures were mandatory, no longer needed in '15. Records are no longer known as records, but they're also known as documented information. But there is a key change in this. There are 2 different terms being coined in '15, and we will see that when we go deep into the sections related to documented information. Those 2 terms are maintain documented information, and retain documented information. So what exactly are those terms? We will see in the future slides. Okay, coming back to table again, there are a few minor changes as far as work environment. In '08 is now called as environment for the operation of processes. Monitoring and measuring equipment is called as monitoring and measuring resources. So they have broadened the term equipment and try to include more elements to it by saying as resources. 2 major changes. Purchase product is now called as externally provided products and services. So that goes back to the first thing that we saw, where products are called as products and services. So purchase product is now called as externally provided products and services. Last term in the table, supplier. Supplier is nothing but your external provider. So I had a brief look at this, but I would recommend all of you to have a look at the Annex A and go through all the descriptions. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email. So coming back to the start of the standard, we have forward and introduction. Forward basically talks about what ISO is and goes into details how this document has been drafted. Very information kind of section, you can skip it if you want. It really doesn't matter. Introduction has majority of the sections. We will talk about them in our future slides, so I won't spend a great deal of time over here. But the only point I want to highlight over here, if you are a non-quality person and just starting with the ISO standards, it's very important for you to go through 0.1 general section of this introduction and 0.2 the quality management principles. Both of these sections are important because they really make the basis on which this standard is drafted. Again, process approach, PDCA cycle, risk-based thinking, we discussed those in our previous presentations. It's very important for you to take a look at figure 2 and just have an observation of that. In all the future slides, we will revisit this figure all the time, and we will know why we are doing that in the future slides. Relationship with other management system standards. Again, what it really explains is what kind of impact the other ISO release standards will have with the advent of this new standard 015. So let's say if you have ISO 14001, if you have ISO 18000 series on safety, what kind of impact that you're looking at because of this new standard. So this really explains. They have made a lot of references. Again, if you want more information, send me an email and we can discuss about it. Okay, so that takes care of forward introduction. So let's see what section 1, 2, and 3 talk about. Again, information. Section 1 really defines the scope of your QMS. Section 2 and 3 really ask you to go and visit ISO 9000 2015. The reason I'm going real fast with all of these sections that we're discussing today is those are just information sections. Those are just a literature that you must read before you start on your journey of ISO 9001 2015. So I would recommend all of you as a homework, if you're learning this as a student, is to read through all of this and get a good understanding of all this information before you can jump onto the section 4 onward sections. Okay, so next we have lecture 4, and which talks about section 4, context of an organization. This is the new term. It has a lot of new concepts in it, so I'll spend a good deal of time in those sections, and not like today where I really rushed through all this section, but really it was important for me to at least highlight what's needed to be read before you can start the journey of ISO 9001 2015. Okay, having said that, please do subscribe my channel. Again, that's a request of Conversia ISO 9001 2015. And if you have any questions, again, you know the email in the description of this video. Have a good one and see you in lecture 4. Bye bye.